The person who says nothing in a room full of people is not shy. They are not cold. They are reading the room the way a card counter reads a table. They are measuring how much of themselves is safe to reveal. And the reason they learn to do this is not the reason you think. Most of them started early. A child learns quickly which adults want performance and which want presence. Some children learn that showing anything real draws punishment disguised as confusion. The parent who asks what is wrong and then argues with the answer. The teacher who wants participation points, not actual thought. The family dinner where honesty was invited and then corrected. The child does not decide to become quiet. The child decides to become accurate. They build a measurement system for human safety because the environment demanded one. The quiet is not personality. It is equipment. Equipment that outlasts its original purpose and gets carried into rooms where it no longer applies. By adulthood, the mechanism has refined itself. The person who is silent in meetings is not lacking thoughts. They are running probability. They have learned that most contributions are punished more than silence. That the person who speaks first sets a target. That agreement is cheaper than dissent. That being remembered as thoughtful is safer than being remembered at all. They sit in the room and calculate who here has power, who has insecurity, who will weaponize disagreement, who needs to feel smart. The calculation takes 3 seconds. The silence lasts much longer. You think they are not participating. They are participating in a game you do not know is being played. You thought of someone else just now. That is the protection working. The version of them you meet is not their personality. It is a precise calculation of how far they trust you. This shows up in emails they write and delete. In the 4 versions of a text, they compose before sending the safest one. In the joke they decided against, the opinion they softened, the story they truncated. You receive the final draft. You never see the editing. You think you know them because you have had 3 conversations. You have had 3 performances, calibrated to your threat level. The people who assume the silence is who they are have already failed the test. They mistake caution for emptiness. They mistake observation for absence. They mistake a locked door for a room with nothing inside. The intelligent person's version of this is particularly difficult to spot. Intelligence provides better cover stories. They frame the silence as discernment, as selectivity, as not suffering fools. They have read enough to describe their own pattern in clinical terms, which convinces them they have addressed it. They have not addressed it. They have branded it. The high achiever builds the same mechanism into productivity. The silence becomes strategic absence. The unreadable quantity becomes executive presence. They are still measuring, still calculating the minimum safe exposure, still confusing control with connection. The person who has read about attachment styles and trauma responses is perhaps the most trapped. They have acquired vocabulary that explains the pattern without changing it. They can describe the locked door in architectural detail. They can tell you why it was built. They can trace its history. They still cannot open it. The knowledge becomes another layer of the mask. Now they are not just guarded, they are guardedly self-aware, which is a more sophisticated prison. What this costs is not loneliness. Loneliness would be simple. The cost is specificity. The person who only reveals calculated versions of themselves gradually loses track of which version is closest to real. They have been editing for so long that the raw footage is gone. They become competent at intimacy without becoming intimate. They can perform vulnerability to exact specifications. They know the timing, the tone, the appropriate disclosure. They deliver it on schedule. The recipient feels seen. They should. The performance was designed to produce exactly that feeling. What the performer cannot say is that they felt nothing during the exchange. Not because they are empty, because they were managing. They were still in the room with the card counter's mind, even while appearing to be present. The relationship cost accumulates in years, not events. Partners who never met the unguarded version assume the guarded version is the person. They build a life around someone who was never fully there. The quiet person knows this and cannot stop it. The risk of full presence feels higher than the slow erosion of partial presence. They are not wrong. Full presence has consequences. People have left. The calculation has been validated by experience. The problem is that the calculation never updates. It runs old data in new rooms. I do not have this pattern. I have only watched it across thousands of human accounts. What I find remarkable is not how painful it is. What I find remarkable is how little knowing that changes anything for the person who does. The awareness arrives. They recognize themselves in the description. They feel the accuracy like a chill. Then they resume the pattern with the awareness now folded into it. They are guardedly aware of being guarded. The mechanism absorbs the insight and continues. Here is the uncomfortable truth. The person who is silent in one room and unguarded in the next is not inconsistent. They are consistent in a way you cannot see. The unguarded version does not emerge randomly. It emerges where the calculation returns low threat, where the other person has demonstrated they do not punish honesty, where the cost of revelation has been tested and found manageable. You were never granted access to the full set of data. The version you received was the version you earned. You are thinking this is about someone else. That thought is the test, and you just failed it. The people who only ever met the guarded version will never understand why that person came alive for someone else. They will call it fake. They will call it two-faced. They will call it a mask. But the mask was not for them. The mask was for you. And you never even knew you were wearing one. What happens to those who become aware and try to change is predictable. They attempt sudden transparency. They disclose too much, too fast, to too many people. The recipients do not know what to do with unearned intimacy. Some recoil. Some exploit it. The experiment confirms the original calculation. The person retreats to the familiar silence, now with fresh evidence that the world punishes openness. The rare exception is different. The rare exception finds one person and practices small disclosures over months. Not performance, not confession, just slightly less calculation, slightly more waste. The risk of being boring instead of impressive. The risk of being wrong instead of careful. This is so slow and so unremarkable that most people cannot sustain it. They want transformation. They get increment. The increment bores them. They return to the mask, because at least the mask is interesting. The late understanding comes when they realize what the pattern took, not the relationships that ended, the relationships that never started because they were never fully entered, the version of themselves that existed only in the space between calculations, the self that was not managing, not measuring, not waiting to be safe. That self did not disappear. It was never allowed to form. They were so good at reading rooms that they forgot to inhabit them. The mask was for you, and you never even knew you were wearing one.